So,
Morning.
morning. So, I was kind of debating when Kala asked me to do composer or musician, and when I was looking up few things, I came across a couple of really nice demonstrations by some of our musicians that triggered me to go on to this topic. I watched almost like two parts of an hour and a half demos, which was really nice. It was a deep dive into a lot of composers in those videos. But I have kind of took a high level approach to what I can present here today to learn some of the things that I learned and sharing with you. So I'll start with some background here. So as the topic says, I'm focusing more on the female composers because we were talking about the trinities. We talked about Beethoven, Bach, and Mozart. So I wanted to focus a little bit on the female composers, especially on from southern India. So from what I have learned, we go back to some history here because the Carnatic music has evolved from a long time before. So the music has been there throughout. When I think the human being existed in different forms, one kind or the other. So our music, they say it evolved from the Samaveda, which is one of the Vedas of Hinduism. But I'm not going too far. But starting with the Sangam, what they call the Sangam period, it's roughly 600 BCE through 300 CE. So there've been many women composers in southern India. So some are like those Sangam period composers. They are revered as saints. While others were like really ordinary women, like just like domestic. They do the domestic for chores, household responsibilities. Especially the 20th century. They're not treated like trinities or the saints, but they're ordinary women, but they have really composed really nice kritis as we see it. Now the old compositions, they were very very poetic. They were very rich in literature, soulful, very soulful. A lot of them are religious, devotional themed, and we also do see in those Sangam period, women have composed on nature, philosophy, moral values, and many more. So you see different varieties of compositions there. And then it evolved into what we call Kirtana. Kirtana is a very simplified form of compositions, which has this Pallavi, what we call the Pallavi and Charanam, just, the multiple Charanams with one Pallavi. And then the Kriti format is what we are following today in the Trinity compositions and the later composers, which has a Pallavi, Anupallavi, and Charanam format. That came much later, actually, it evolved later. Now, these poems, that old poems, they are tuned, and they were not like, they didn't have a tuning before, but they are tuned and performed by musicians in concert. So basically, they choose any ragam according to the mood of the poem, and then they sing in the concerts. And some of these poems are sung in Viritam format. That's under whole other topic when we have to talk about format of the compositions in a concert. But Viritam is one kind of what you call. So let me go back. Sorry. It's I think I have it in my notes. What a Viritam is. It's just they take the poem, they sing it more like an alapana, and they bring out the essence of the raga in that. But it has the poem in it. It's not just just an kind of thing, but rather words are used. The poem itself is used. Now the later composers, they use the Kirtana Kriti format. Now I'll play you an example of what an Viritam is.
No matter who you are or where you are, you can achieve your career goals.
பெற்ற தாய் தனை மகமறந்தாலும் பெற்ற தாய் தனை மகமறந்தாலும் பெற்ற தாய் தனை மகமறந்தாலும் பிள்ளையை பெறும் தாய் தாய் மறந்தாலும் பிள்ளையை பிள்ளையை பெறும் தாய் மறந்தாலும் உற்ற தேகத்தை.
So as you can see, there is no beat to it. They don't use the thala format. Rather, they take the composition and just sing it in a freestyle format based on some raga. Usually, they sing in the same raga, or it could be a combination of different ragas. So they could do a raga malika kind of thing. So that's what a vritam is called. These poems are kind of used in more in viritams, the old compositions, rather, which are not in the kriti or kirtana format. So that's kind of a light touch on the viritam, but I think we can explore in some other session on what are the different other formats that they use in the concerts. But I just wanted to see how show you how the usage of the some of the old poems were used in current concerts. Now we're going to see some of the early composers that we know. Some of these their names are a little bit maybe harder to read, but I'll try to go slow. Wanted to start with Karaikal Ammayar. Karaikal Ammayar. She was, as we know, she was in 6th century. She was one of only 3 female Nayanmars. Nayanmars were a group of 63 saints. They were part of Tamil Nadu. They lived during the 3rd and 8th centuries around that time. They were very devoted to the Hindu god Shiva, so the more devotional there. Now, in her verses, she has demonstrated her knowledge of the intricacies of music. You can actually see references to Saptaswaras, various percussion instruments, and even she has mentioned Veena, because Veena was, I think it came later popular. In those days, it was called yar. It's an instrument called yar, which is again a string instrument, very close to Veena. But she has, in her verses, she has references to Veena. And also in those days, in Tamil music, the 7 notes, she has references to 7 notes that we call today the sari, gama, padani. There is Tamil names to each one of those notes. I've listed it here. It's called Kural, Tuttam, Kaikilai, Urai, Ili, Vilari, and Tharam. It's a little bit difficult to say, but even in her verses, she has referred to these notes. So it's amazing to see that these notes even existed around that time, but in a different name that's known. So we don't know exactly how it was used at the time, but there are references in her verses to these notes. So that's a very first woman composer that I came across. Around the same time, Andal is our next composer, women composer. She is said to have lived in 7th or 8th century, and she is the only female. This is another set of saints who are affiliated to the Sri Vaishnava tradition of Hinduism. She's called Andal, and she is the only female. So you can imagine, it's always been that male-dominated in music also, and it's very hard to find where female who contributed a lot, and and sometimes even their compositions are not kind of came in the limelight, and it's very difficult to find some of these compositions. But Andal is quite popular. She's the only female Arvar. She was said to be actually a teenager when she composed. She was barely a teenager. Her two major works are Tirupavai and Nachiyar Tirumuri. Her poems were full of love and devotion. And you can see when you look at her poems, she was very bold. Even at that age, it's amazing how bold she was in expressing her feelings. And they are very popular, and they're set to tune and sung even in concerts today. So the Tirupavai is very, very popular, and that's rendered in concerts today. And in the Nachiyar Tharmari, actually, in one of her, she has a list of songs that explains the tradition of wedding in the Hindu marriages. So she explains like how the groom arrives. It's her dream on how she's imagining the Lord to come and marry her, and she's explaining step by step what's happening during the wedding. So there are a lot of rituals explained in her poems. Through that, we can see her dream of wedding. So that's her. I'm going to play a little example of one of her composition, a small sample.
A big part of our mission is to create a space in which culture can be shared.
கற்பூரம் நாருமோ கமலப்பூ நாருமோ கற்பூரம் நாருமோ கமலப்பூ நாருமோ கற்பூரம் நாருமோ கமலப்பூ நாருமோ கற்பூரம் நாருமோ கமலப்பூ திருப்பவள செவ்வாய்தார் தித்தி திருக்கு கற்பூரம் நாருமோ கமலப்பூ நாருமோ திருப்பவள செவ்வாய்தார் தித்தி திருக்கு கற்பூரம் நாருமோ கமலப்பூ திருப்பவள செவ்வாய்தார் தித்தி திருக்கு
So as you can see, this is still her one of her poems. So the present day musicians, they have set it to tune, and they have followed a kind of a more kind of kriti kirtana format. They gave that shape to it. In her when she composed it was all poems, so she did not set a tune or anything like that, but it was later composed by the musicians. I just want to touch on other composers that I came across. I'm not going deep into some of these composers. I'll go a little bit more into the later day composers. Akka Mahadevi, there are different states in the southern India. So the two composers that we just saw, there from Tamil Nadu. Akka Mahadevi is a composer of 12th century from Karnataka. Helavanakette Giriyamma, she was from 18th century. She was the only female dasa of all the Haridasas. Haridasa is a group of composers, and there are many Haridasas. And it is said she's the only one female among all the Haridasas. She set her verses to tune herself, and mostly in Kirtana format, in simple Kannada. And I also have heard that she had very simple songs to teach even kids and to sing in groups. She has a lot of compositions in that language. So she's very popular for very simple tunes and kritis. I mean kirtanas. So and she's the only female dasa of the this entire set of Haridasas. So that's very special. And then I also learned Talapaka Tirumalamma. She's from Andhra Pradesh. She's the wife of Annamacharya, and Annamacharya is a very popular composer like the Trinities from Andhra. I just learned that Talapaka Tirumalamma, wife of Annamacharya, is also a composer, and she was said to be the first Telugu poetess also. So that's amazing. Audai Akkal, a child widow of the 17th century and a follower of Sridhara Ayyawal, composed many verses specifying ragams for the same. Andavan Pichai, this woman, she mothered 10 children, lived till 1990 to age 91. She wrote several compositions, many on Lord Muruga. And I have the grandchildren of Andavan Pichai who lives near my house, actually here in Apex. I've heard a lot of her compositions, being sung here locally. So it's really special for me to learn about this composer and have one of her generation, some of her generation kids here singing her compositions. And Muddu Palani, another composer, 18th century of Andhra Pradesh. So from all these different states, there have been composers living in different centuries, and they have contributed quite a bit in the music world. Next, I have Bangalore Nagaratnamma. She's very special. She lived from 1878 to 1952. She was a Carnatic singer. She's an excellent performer, I've heard, and a scholar too. And she knew multiple languages, and she has published works and have given discourses in Telugu, Tamil, Sanskrit. In addition to Kannada, she almost 4 languages that she is well versed with. And the special part is she was the one who initiated the temple over the memorial where the Tiruvayyaru, which is the place where Tyagaraja, one of the trinities, attained Samadhi. And she helped establish the Aradhana festival at Tiruvayyaru every year. Now, because of her, the temple was built and the Aradhana festival started in that place today. It's very special because when you look at that period, it was a very male-dominated society, and for her to come in and make this possible, build a temple and establish the festival, she was very aggressive woman that we know about, and she was enough to ensure that women artists were given equality to participate in it, because it was all male who could sing in that festival, and she made sure that female artists also got a chance to perform in that festival. And she's believed to have composed Kannada Javali, Matada Baradenu in Ragam Kamas. So Javali is a light classical love song which is presented in music and dance concerts today. So I will play a little bit of that Javali here.
Matada Baradenu Maramana Matada Baradenu Maramana Matada Baradenu Maramana Matada Baradenu Maramana Matada Baradenu Maravana Matada Baradenu
So you can go and listen in that link the full song, but that's a Javali composition by Bangalore Nagaratnama. So and then we move on to Ambujam Krishna. So Ambujam Krishna lived from 1917 to 1989. She's a more modern composer, as we know in the Carnatic music world. She has composed more than 600 kritis. They are all in the proper kriti format, as we know today of Carnatic music. She wrote several compositions in various languages. She's again well versed in Tamil, Sanskrit, Telugu, Kannada. So she has like 4 languages. She's well versed. She also composed songs with more than one language in the same song. We call this Mani Pravalam. So within the same song, there will be multiple languages going in. So she has composed similar songs in Mani Pravalam. The interesting thing is she did not tune them herself. So she wrote them, and she entrusts the task of tuning them to stalwart musicians who also presented them at concerts. So I think she met different stalwart musicians during her time, and they took her compositions and tuned them, and then they sang in concerts. I'll just play one of her composition here. So that's one of her compositions. That's Dharmavati. Yes. So she has composed. I mean, her kritis are so beautiful, and they're very very popular among musicians today. Other composers that we know, in the modern day composers, K.M. Soundaryavalli, D. Pattammal, Mangalam Kanapati, Kalyani Vardarajan, Neela Ramamurthy. She's the elder daughter of Sri Papanasam Sivan. Papanasam Sivan was a very popular composer. There are two of his daughters, actually, they are really good composers. Padma Vera Raghavan, V.M. Godai Nayaki, Suguna Purushothaman, she still composes. Rukmini Ramani also is a daughter of Papanasam Shivan, and she composes. She has composed many songs. So these are all modern day composers. As you see, these many of these women are like housewife, or they do take care of household responsibilities, and they are still like very well versed in Carnatic music, and they have done many compositions. That brings to the end of the information I had for this session. So I will open it up to questions, and then I will continue the musicians related my presentation in another session. I'll open it for any questions at this time.